Real quick, I'll let you know what we're going to do today, and that is, I don't know, we're gonna go out in the desert.
Go tour.
What we'll do is we'll talk a bit about the Death Valley 49ers and Harry Wade and what all this is. Then we're going to go up, and if me and Reiner can remember where it is, we're going to go up to a cabin in a place called Salt Basin, which will be on the south side of Saratoga Springs Road here. And it's a cool little cabin up in a little, almost like a dell, you know, where gnomes and fairies live.
Is there farmers there?
Yeah. Well, one. He's really mean. So anyway, and then from there, and then we'll go up to Saratoga Springs, talk about that. Head up to Ibex and Ibex Springs there, talk a bit about that. In terms of difficulty of the road, it is fairly well graded. There are some sandy spots, there's some rocky spots on this part to the south of the Saratoga Springs Road, I mean. And but nothing heavy duty. I'm gonna air down because it's just, I've got 4-leaf springs and they're stiff as a board. And so I'm gonna take a little air out of my tires and then we'll head on. There's only about a half a dozen or 8 of us, something like that, so it'll be a nice group. Now this is not a long run, so I'll tell you this because it's at Wayne's expense. When I pre-ran this with Reiner and JP 2 weeks ago, we came out, we did what we're gonna do today, then we went over and came down Amargosa Canyon and Sperry Wash, and we got to the bottom of Sperry Wash just after sunset. And I go, oh, that is way too long. And that was just 2 vehicles. So what we'll do is, this will be kind of just fun and interesting. When we end at Ibex, we'll hit pavement, we'll go up to Shoshone, and we'll check out the museum there. And if we can, we'll stop by Dublin Gulch, right? Dublin Gulch is where the miners dug into the sides of the hills and made their houses in there. It's private property, but we apparently you can still see it from the side of the road and get a good view of it. And then we'll go over to China what's it called? China Ranch? China Ranch? China Ranch.
Date shakes.
You guys can get yourself some date shakes, and then it's up to you. After that, you can come back to camp. You can do Sperry Wash if you want. I'm not gonna, because I've done it enough. Or you can go over to those mines. If you missed the mine tours yesterday, Wayne was saying if you would go back, you go in there, the guy would give you another tour, but it probably cost you $20. But it would be more personalized. Yes.
Good morning. I wanted to go on this trip, but our breakfast isn't done. So let me tell you about, have you told them about this?
No.
Okay, so this is the Harry Wade exit route. I don't know what they told you yesterday, but I understand Mike gave some kind of overview of the area. Okay, Harry Wade was part of the 49ers. Now, if you were to be in Death Valley and you were to go up the West Side Road, you would come to where they camped through Christmas, and they were damn near dead. And Rogers and Manley, there were 2 young guys with them, hiked out over the mountains, and they wound up in San Fernando and got rescued and came back. And they got up one morning, the people at the camp, and the classic line was, "The boys are coming, the boys are coming." They were rescued. But Harry Wade and his family didn't stay with them. They left and came down the route you're going to go up, and this is where they exited. From there they went down, and there was no baker, of course, and I don't think there was even a bar stove. But they eventually wound up, again, I think this time at the San Gabriel Missions. So this plaque, as you can see, it's a Billy Holcomb plaque. I was instrumental in us getting it. We decided we wanted to do a plaque out here, and so we had a deal with the Park Service and the BLM as where we could put the plaque, and they couldn't figure out where their properties ended, but it ended somewhere around here. So we just decided we were going to put the plaque up, and they said, "Well, we don't know. It's the other guys." And the other guy said, "We don't know. It's them." So we put the plaque up here. 90s, I think, isn't it? What does that say?
99. Yep, November 13th. 99.
And we had at that event descendants from the Harry Wade family.
That's cool.
And that was really pretty cool. That's why the monument is here. But this is where they actually came out. So you're going to be traveling at least to Saratoga Springs, I think, on the route they came on. And I really was privileged to be there. I believe we put the plaque up before we were here, and then we unveiled it here. And there were, we used to have the Death Valley Clamp Out. Clamp Out was the second weekend in November when they had Death Valley days. And so we had clampers from all over. And one of the guys, ex-Sublime Noble Grand Humbug, Earl Schmidt, had been a president of the 49ers. And so he gave a little talk, and he knew these Wade descendants, and they were all here. It was really pretty cool. That's all I got. Well, where's the $10?
Say that again?
Some good stuff here. As far as we can tell, the area was occupied starting around 1930, 1932. There was a guy named Myers had the place. There's a picture inside of the main cabin here and about 3 or 4 tent cabins right along here. And there's an interesting little story about it that from the guy's daughter. His name was Myers, and he and his wife would come out here for months at a time, working a claim right up the canyon there. Now, when we were here pre-running it 2 weeks ago, it was me and Reiner and J.P. McFeeters. We didn't go up that canyon, but we ought to, because I think there's a door that goes into a mine up that way. And then I've been hanging around Neil too long. And then JP, so Reiner, how did JP get, do you remember how JP got involved in this place? These guys, he knew these guys?
He knew, yeah.
So I guess the place was really falling apart.
Bill Mann.
What's that?
Through Bill Mann, you know.
Oh yeah, so if you've ever heard of Bill Mann, he's the guy that wrote those adventure guides to different parts of the Mojave Desert. He used to have a group that came out to different spots, and this is one of the spots they came to. These two gentlemen here, whose crosses are there, and the names are on the crosses, I believe. They found this place pretty much leaning against the side of the hill. This has got to be in the either in the 70s or early 80s, and they took it upon themselves to straighten it up and to refurbish the place and make it something that people can come to, like an adopted cabin.
1972.
Is that what it is?
Sandwich on the top of the door.
Oh, right here. Bed Spring Ranch, established 1972. So it's a bitchin' spot. The outhouse is fully functional. I can attest to that. Got a little shooting range over there, and it's one of these deals where if you get here, you put up the flag. There's a flag inside.
Yeah, flagpole right
There's
here.
a flagpole somewhere.
Right there next to them.
No, right
And
there.
at one point, it looks there was apparently a solar water heater and shower around back, and there's a little mining, like a little tunnel in the back, which is probably was used for like food storage and that kind of stuff. But check it out, look inside, it's bitchin'. If ever you come, you know, it's the kind of a thing where if you need a place to stay, there's some canned food in there, and then you drop off some of your own, that kind of stuff.
Nice.
But as far as I know, I'm pretty sure we're still on BLM land, but we're right near the edge. There's wilderness right on the other side of the road, and then the national park over in there too. But check it out, and just a bitchin' little spot.
You think I can hit that target from here?
Here we are at Saratoga Springs. That's all we got. All right, time to go.
You don't say.
The springs are actually over the hill here. Back in 1860, there was a guy named Colonel Carleton who launched an expedition against the Paiute Indians because they had been messing with people coming along the old Spanish Trail. He was a colonel of dragoons. Dragoons are mounted infantrymen, and they were in the United States Army. And a little after 1860, 1861, I think it was 1860, that they were converted from dragoons to being cavalrymen. Anyway, yeah. So they had blue uniforms like you would see on a Civil War soldier, short jackets, but the trim on their collars and on their down the front of the uniform and around the bottom of the shell jacket was orange rather than yellow. But they were equipped like the cavalrymen would be. Well, anyway, one of the companies in that expedition that was going to go punish the Paiutes was led by a guy named Davis, and Davis came up here, knowing that the springs were here to, as they were trying to track down the Indians who had done the depredations. They were here and used the springs. A little bit later on, a fellow named, I think it was Gilbert, was a surveyor. This is now 1871. He's the guy that named the springs Saratoga Springs, and apparently they were named for the Saratoga Springs in New York, hot springs in New York. So they're warm water. They are very. Who's ever seen them before? Who's ever been here?
Never.
All right. So don't listen to any of these guys then. But when you go over that hill and you look down, you'll be really impressed with the size of these pools. You wouldn't think it driving up the road that we were on just before, or my group when we were across the valley over at Salt Basin. You just wouldn't think that these springs would be here, and yet there they are. So they're real important to the riparian habitat here. They've got their own little species of pupfish. You guys bring your lures? And,
I brought my jig.
And in 1871, as I said, they were named. In about 1883 to about 1889, 1888, the 20 mule teams stopped here. So these are the mule teams coming from the Amargosa borax works further up the valley. So we are in the tail end of Death Valley. I was talking to somebody, well, I think it was Rich. They didn't realize that this is the bottom end of Death Valley. And so the wagon trains would come through and go out of Death Valley through Wingate Wash, which is just to the west of here. That was an easier route, eventually down to the town of Mojave where they could pick up the railroad. But they watered here as well. Then in about where's Neil? He did it again. Then in about 1909, there was a nitrate mine here, and the pools were widened. So the pools are already here, but they weren't as big as what you'll see when you go over the hill. Nitrates used in making explosives and making fertilizers and so on. It used to have to mine it, saltpeter. Some of you guys, when you were in Boy Scout camp, they probably put saltpeter in your food because, well, you know.
They wouldn't let me in. I kept eating the brownies.
There you have it. That was pretty good.
Only was sponsored by the Catholic Church.
Hey, watch it there. Putting your name into my book, and I'm going to draw a line through it. So they widened the pools, but they were mining for, as I said, for saltpeter, and eventually they started making these nitrates artificially. You didn't have to mine for them anymore. But I guess mining was still occurring here up until the early 70s, so pretty fairly recently, relatively recently. Some of us were still alive. I think I was 6 years old. Sid was 75, I think.
Sit here.
Now you're on his list.
Dean told me to say that.
Liar. I know my men.
I was a junior in high school, Paul.
Oh my gosh.
What year are you talking?
Early, still about 70, 71. In there.
I was born in '72, so I was
I graduated.
still gleaming.
Oh my goodness.
I just
I was
got
still
done
gleaming with
shaving
Daddy's
your
eye.
ass.
I wasn't even a sperm then.
I started college in 71.
Dang. So when we were here last, I think we were here in 2003-ish. And I believe you could still drive over the little
Yes.
hill here and drive right to the springs. But obviously you can see it's been closed off.
We can still
When you
drive
get
it.
up to the top of the hill, you'll look down, you'll see the pools. And on the right side, you'll see the remains of a stone house. There's actually a little town here at one point too to
Slower
support
pace.
the mining.
I've adopted it myself.
Yeah, there was hot springs. So these are warm springs here. Apparently, I've never been in them. They're surrounded by, I guess, they're cattails and other tall plants. You can't really get to the springs, and I don't think if you could, you're really supposed to be in them. But yeah, there was a little resort here as well. with that, let's wander up the hill.
When I was
Mosey
a kid
on.
here,
There's nitrate in it.
when I was a kid here,
I wouldn't drink it.
we used to go into the
Because he said they watered here, so I don't know what that
pools all the time.
You used to be able to go into. Yeah, and I guess
Yeah, my family would come by for the vacation.
the one thing I forgot to mention is that they actually had a company here. It was a company that bottled and sold the water here.
Sucked him in.
Wait a minute. Good old
Microbes, I hope.
yeah, they just strained those out with an old
Was it
sock.
called diarrhea water?
One time we were here,
Yeah,
this whole area was green.
yeah.
And it was this time of year. We came out of Tuscan this time of year. It was the year of Billy's Bar.
Yeah, I remember that.
And,
I think
But
Phillips was head abbot then, wasn't he?
huh?
I think Jim Phillips was the head abbot.
Either Jim or
I think it
Paul.
was Mike Johnson, but I don't know. But anyway, it was all green.
Yeah, I remember that. And I think, and when we came here, me and JP and Reiner pre-ran this 2 weeks ago, and I was expecting that it would stand out a lot more. I hadn't been here since then, so I wasn't exactly sure where I was coming up the road until you see the big sign that says Saratoga Springs, turn left. But I was expecting a big green area, and since there hasn't been any rain in Southern California since last April, that probably explains this. But let's go up and check it out.
So
Oh,
the
wait,
Wade
there's more.
family, when they exited, they didn't know this was here.
As far as I know. And I was just reading that the Wade family, new research indicates the Wade family may not have left the way that everybody thought they did. They may have gone over Wingate Wash. And where that comes from, the sources I don't know. I just read it when I picked up the history. Now let's go over and take a look at the spring. Ibex Springs, Ibex Hills, Ibex Dunes over there. The name is an animal. It's like an antelope, I guess, that lives in Africa. Which is many. Yeah, they got long horns.
Spiral horns.
They got spiral horns. They're really fast, and they live nowhere near here. So where did the name come from? Well, there was an Ibex mining company, Ibex Mining District Company out of Chicago in the 1880s. For a while, there was a little boom here in the late 1880s, and then later on, talc started to be mined here. The mine that we were just at. Well, I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Take it easy.
The mine that we were just at, I believe, was the Eclipse mine. But there's a whole, I don't know what the relationship is between these mines, but they all seem to be linked. Between here through Warm Springs Canyon, which is on the other side of the valley, all the way towards into the El Paso Mountains with the Dutch Cleanser mine and all those. It seems to be all like a run of talc all the way through there. And maybe that's somehow they're all geologically connected. I do not know, but it seems to be more than a coincidence that they all seem to be kind of in a straight line east and west between here and all the way out to the El Paso Mountains, which is up, by Randsburg. Anyway, also taken from here was gold, was silver, and they say that when everything was working right, and they had enough water, and they had enough, the stamp mill was working properly, they were taking out several $1,000s worth of silver out of here every month. But then it also goes on to say that when I say it, it's the history by Mike. That was when everything was working right, and then he says that didn't happen very often. But still, there was a fairly rich silver strike here, but it wasn't very long lasting. Then talc started getting mined during World War I, and then also in the 1920s, and then also after World War II. The town site here, when we were here 20 years ago, that building over there was still standing.
On the ground.
In fact, where's Reiner? Here. Oh, so when we were here a couple weeks ago, didn't JP say he was up here about 3-4 years ago, and the building was still standing? Yeah.
I think it fell down in the hurricane.
Oh yeah, that's right. We that it probably fell down during that hurricane that came through a year and a half ago. Yeah. There are a number of other structures that are still. So this was it was a going concern. This town here, it had, as Mike says, all all of the amenities, including hantavirus, which I seem to have caught. The spring itself is up by the palm trees. You'll see it's surrounded by a bunch of salt cedar around it. It's kind of thick, but there is a good amount of water in there. And this is the water that was used for the water supply here in the town, and for the mill, I guess, as well. Well, for the mill as well. And then I think that the mining pretty much petered out, was done by the early 1970s. If one were to take this road that we came in on before we made our right turn into the town, further up you can see more mining activity back up in that direction as well. Some of you guys, Cookie's group went up from where we ate lunch. They went up that road further along, up into the hills there, and it just turns around about 500 feet above where we were, where we had our lunch, and comes back down. Did you hike up? Did you walk up there? I saw somebody walk.
No, it wasn't me.
And I know Rich walked up there, right? Went into one of the mines.
Yeah, the far right one.
Found a skeleton holding onto a treasure.
Yeah.
We'll never see him again.
With a beer in his hand.
Yeah, bear still there. You didn't finish it.
So I was just thinking of a question, and that is, I wonder how many people live here at its peak. In my mind. This is just going off what I remember, the number of structures that were here 20 years ago. I'll bet you there had to be 150 people lived here, because that structure, those houses were there. I think there's 2 of them there. You can see another one up in there, and if you walk up beyond the other side, on the other side of that salt cedar there, you can see some more buildings in the behind that, up around those other palm trees, and then down in this wash, there's quite a few as well. So let's take, what time is it?
135.
It's 1:35, and what I had figured to do was, after this, to head back out, hit the highway, go up to Shoshone and check out the museum. And then anybody what wants to can follow us down to get date shakes at China Ranch, or you can go on home to the back to the campsite. And if you also are tired of all of this right now, when we hit the highway, if you do want to go back to camp right away, instead of turning left and following us, turn right. It'll take you right back to the campsite. You can't miss it, because on the right side of the road there's a bunch of people camped by the plaque.
And then on the left side, yeah.
Yeah. Those guys, I think, are intruders, but the good guys are over on there. See? Look at you smiling. There you go.
He has no smile.
Yeah. My students say the same thing. Especially when I tell my freshmen about the wind machines down near Palm Springs and how they create the wind. Yep. I tell them, I say, don't you know see how windy it is when those are going?
The Santa Anas.